with round 10, folks. We've got a unbelievable match coming up for you. Draven versus Ezreal, two of our undefeated players. First up is Colin, playing Draven, and got a similar idea, minus a Vi or two.
So Colin Kaiser, member of Challenger TCG as well. This is the player who won that Atlanta tournament a while back. That was one of the first 10Ks on Set, and kind of brought Set to the forefront where everyone thought Set was really good in Origins. And now Colin has made it all the way to the undefeated tables playing Miracle Draven. He is on Nocturnes, even though on the same team, not going for that full detonate version. However, still having plenty of success being undefeated.
Yeah, and it's fun to see that on teams where, you think that a team would work together or come to a consensus. That doesn't always happen. There's a lot of good players, and I'm not sure that the detonate version looks riskier, higher ceiling. Maybe if you get it wrong, you could be in a bad spot, but great to see success on both sides. And Colin's opponent needs no introduction.
No, so we won't.
Okay.
Yeah. It's Alanzq. Yeah, it's Alanzq. He is very familiar with this matchup going up against Miracle Draven. Prismaticism, one of his teammates, made top 8 playing Miracle Draven in Bologna. So that is a deck he is very well versed at playing against. He knows how to punish if players play poorly into the Ezreal. They don't know this matchup. But I think Colin Kaiser is somebody who I would expect to know how to play against this, especially after seeing in Bologna test a bunch against it, with the thought that I'm good enough, I'm going to face Alan at some point during this event, and I need to know how to deal with it. So I think this is going to be a heater of a game because Miracle can get around Ezreal. It is a deck that can make it happen. It just produces way too much value that Ezreal sometimes can't quite keep up.
It's so crazy to think of a player in a 600-person tournament saying, oh, I'm going to win this tournament, I need to beat Alan. I need to beat one person. But that's the run that Alan has been on recently, just seemingly unbeatable.
And it's a common sentiment among top players right now, is they do have to take Alan into account for wanting to spike. It is just a fact. Any top player coming to this tournament thought about Alan once. They dreamed about Alan once, knowing that, hey, one day I may have to sit across from him in my run to try and make that top 8. And, Colin is an absolute powerhouse when it comes to Riftbound already in his own right. So this is a clash of absolute titans.
Awesome to see. And for you folks who maybe saw Alan's list from last weekend in Bologna, saw the Ezreal list, maybe you didn't get to see a lot of the games, picked it up and was like, I just can't win this deck, it's just too hard. Watch and learn, my friends, because the master is going to be at work here.
Yeah, one of the big things that we are going to look at, I talked about overdevelopment in that last game from Rossum, how Victor can punish it. Ezreal is the same vein. Bellows Breath can wipe your entire board. If Colin decides to commit everything out there, Alan will try and hunt down the pieces to remove it all in one swift swoop. And from there, it becomes very hard for Miracle to redevelop with Alan continuing to ping things off in the aftermath.
So, Colin starting off here, gone first, and unfortunately not the best start, just a turn 1 stack deck, kind of like a consolation prize when you missed your first drop. But a little more of a setup here too. This is a deck that's not as important to have that early play as long as you're setting up for your big Miracle turn, correct?
Yeah, it is. And for this game, Alan, also the Vex being one of the cards that was talked about quite a bit. But this matchup, there's not a lot of spells that Vex gets to hit. So we're going to see him bin this Vex early. They may even come out in the board in game 2 and 3 because against Miracle Draven, yeah, they have spells, but you're not really getting opportunities for the Vex to cause problems. What it can do still is reduce the cost of your own spells and when you can force a combat to go for a big removal. So she's not a complete waste, she's not completely useless, but it's not the matchup you're looking for that Vex, and we see her dumped away very quickly early on for Alan to build up more of the spell base that he needs to get the big removals. Because I think at this point you see the Zonwarns, you know it's Miracle, you're just looking for ways to deal with the pop-off, and that is going to be finding Bellows Breath, that's finding Watchers to go along with it, or you're going to want Bellows Breath, Fizz, combined with something like a Frigid Touch. These are some of the cards that Alan is going to look to make sure he has for that endgame, and he still wants to be able to score points early because this is a deck that continues to pop off, so we may even see him try and pick up like a Raven Bloom that he can at least develop and try and find some early points. Doesn't want to give combats, but he does want to score and look for that removal.
All right, so stack deck once again after called shot. Tons of library manipulation here. Ezreal hanging out in the back row also. similar sort of package, but different sort of payoff, you know, where in the Draven deck, we see Battering Rams, kind of this big like pop-off turn, where this is just a lot of setup, and a lot of kind of crafting and finding the right cards, right?
Yeah, and there's the student that he finds just wanting to have this setup so that he can start going to maybe 2 points on the next turn. I think a really good result for Alan is that Colin actually goes for a big development here, and then Alan has a good answer and punish to remove a lot of it, and is able to still push in and score. I think that's exactly what Alan would want to see. 6 runes is a little bit hard pressed, but Ezreal can do a lot with 6 runes, right? You've got Bellows Breath with repeat, you can reduce it with the Ezreal, then you can still go Frigid Touch repeat, and you can reduce a bunch of units all over the place trying to get a bunch of clears. And instead Colin, you know, gonna take it slow from the start. This hand, you know, not finding a ton, but he does find a Nocturne off of the search on the stacked deck, so we'll see how much he can put together on this single turn.
Yep, so Nocturne is seen and then played. Card off it as well, but there were 2 steals in hand for Colin too, so there's some explosive potential here. Here's a seal. And another seal. All right, so starting to stack these cards up. That is now 4 cards played.
Yep.
And that's a magic number for the Rams. But we're going to see what looks to be an Ezreal with that floating energy. Ezreal time, scrap heap time. All right, both players doing the thing.
Yeah, gets to draw 3. I mean, this is a lot of played cards. I think he wants to set up some Rams on this turn. The 6 runes, as I said, it's not quite enough to really go for full clears. It's not super easy for Alan to find the clear just on 6 runes. I think there are particular outs he can find that all kind of crux around the Bellows Breath Frigid Touch combo when you're at the 6 runes. And as we see, Colin had to slow down because he didn't even see any Rams on that draw 3.
Yeah, kind of tough here. Colin's hand is a lot of interaction. Rebuke, double fight or flight. Not what we're looking for here. Looking for a little more forward progress. So, Draven will come in. We'll see a loot on the Warrens. Kind of a desperation, let's try and find something else to do here. Discarding a Rebuke. And that is it. And that is not exactly a firework turn. Maybe one of those little you know, bottle rockets, something like that. A sparkler. Okay. It's fun to look at, but not what Colin was looking for. So going back Alan's way. Seal Discord. Those are some nice seals. Those are really cool looking. And here is Vex.
Yeah, just going to jam the Vex. Still time for Alan to just set up, right? You know, talking about wanting to find a big removal and then look for the score. That's if it's a bigger development from Colin. This was slow. This was just a small start. 7 might on the board. Alan can wait for a bigger commitment to then pop off. And Vex does allow the lower rune counts to still do larger ceilings. Because if Colin leaves any unit out of battlefield, Alan just has to push the Vex in and then pop off. Because he's going to have the reduced cost on every single spell that he plays. Vex is now more about the first part of her text, friendly spells costing less, than it is about the second part of the text, whereas enemy spells costing more, where in most of the matchups she's wanting to be used a little of both, but mostly that second line is where the real importance is.
All right, so the patience from Alan here, you know, just multiple chances to move in, not doing it. Going back Colin's way, double called shot. Once again, trying to get that full setup. And the patience from Alan, you watch Alan play, she's so patient. She never moves in. Never does anything. He just is always so patient to find the actual right spot to do everything. So, a lot of cards in hand. Colin's got 2 called shots played already. And Draven's coming back, like you said, trying to avoid the combat scenario with Vex if possible. And stack deck again.
Yeah, he's gone to 2, so I'd like to see Colin not push Void Gate at all, just stay at 2.
Yep.
And you can still look for some good develops because as long as you're not overcommitting, this version has the Nocturne, so you actually have more total might in your deck. So even playing, we saw 2 Hopefuls in that search. It was like with a Fight or Flight, so I think you're probably grabbing a Hopeful, develop that. And you can still go a little bit wide. As long as you got the Rams, the Rosses, you've got the ability to still go for another redeploy. If Alan is able to completely wipe you out, that's still good. But he can still just take it slow over time, score efficiently. Alan doesn't have points yet. You don't have to flinch too early.
Oh, like this. So Nocturne moves in, just a Fight or Flight to back it up. So
I love this.
Extremely, a weird looking play if you're just jumping into the game looking right at it, but being extremely cognizant of this Vex ability and the cost reduction. So just saying, I'm out of combat, even just going to 3 and the retreat. So using that kind of like interactive spell but isn't fantastic in this kind of matchup in a cool way, and then a bunch of might in the back row. Now we're going back Alan's way.
Yeah, I mean, it's Colin showing that he understands this matchup. He understands that he needs to score points, but he can't give away material for free, and he can't overdevelop. And I don't think he's overdeveloped. I think this is fine. You know, you got 2 more battering rams in deck. You have 3 Rosses, 1 more Nocturne. You know, you have cards in deck. There's not a concern there. And he's going to force Alan to have to start moving a little bit. Alan is not going to be able to just sit back forever. And he may even want to get a Warren's Trigger himself, because I'm looking at the hand, and it's not perfect for Alan, right? There is going to be this Arcane Shift, which is going to allow potentially a draw 2 from Ezreal in combat, deal some damage. Morbid Return just going to bring back a Vex, because I think Alan recognizing, hey, I actually don't have a lot to do right now with this hand. I need to wait for a more perfect combat to come a bit later. And he is just going to play one at base. So very, very slow and methodical for Alan. The hand not allowing him to affect the backline just yet.
So Student moved into Void Gate, not Zon Warrens, putting Alan up with just a single point. Why Gate over Warrens?
Yeah, I mean, this is a bit interesting because usually you would just go Warrens, but he must not have had something in hand that he actually wanted to bin. He probably, I haven't seen this whole hand. It's really tough to catch a good glimpse, but I'm imagining he actually has part of the combo pieces needed for full removal. And so he actually wants these cards, but he's not in the game state yet where he can start spending them. I am a little interested about the Student going at all, because being only at the 1 rune, there's not a lot of interaction that he's going to have access to be able to protect this Student. It's very likely just going to go down for free, especially with no hidden card. There's not a lot of interaction that went here. So I'm actually a little bit curious about the Student. I want to see what the plan is, or if it is just Alan being willing to drop a Student here just for the 1 point, which is a bit surprising.
I think this is bait to try and get the Vex into combat.
Yeah.
I mean, this works too, so sure. Stupefy.
Yeah, Stupefy's going to let it trade.
That's fine as well. You know, trying to get Colin to commit to one of the battlefields to get Vex in, because the 1 point doesn't seem that impactful. But there you go. That's a trade.
Yeah.
Pretty good exchange.
Well, it's great for Alan because Draven doesn't get a draw here now. So that's it's like exactly what Alan wanted, but there could have just been a push of the battering ram to play around Stupefy with 1 rune up against Ezreal. So that's where my question mark is on this specific turn, where I don't think I'm fully grasping it. Because the bait is fine for the Nocturne, and it works great for Alan. But what if the battering ram just went?
Well,
I think
if the ram comes in, Alan just concedes the Ravenloom Student, but now has a way
has
to
a
get
target
Vex.
to push Vex, yeah.
He gets Vex into combat, and then he can use that Vex ability to really go off and have a huge turn. But where does the ram go in anyway to the Zon Warrens? So Colin goes up to 4. Warren will trigger, discard and draw. Goodbye Nocturne. And now, again, that opens the door for Vex to possibly come in. Start utilizing that ability that is only applicable in combat. That being said, there are a ton of cards in hand for Colin. These games were so hard with both players having so many cards in hand for so many given options at any time. So next step is a Fizz. Are we gonna see this Fight or Flight play again?
It very well could be, yeah. I was thinking, like, usually you just want to Fizz into the stack or the called shot, but you really don't want to give this Vex combat, and but you also need to go to 4, right? So going to 4 is very important. You need to push something in. I like this Fizz play a lot. Continue not giving Alan the combat with the Vexes. I
love the play of this game. This has been a very, very high-level game. Both players kind of baiting, setting traps, you know. Alan trying to get the Vex into combat. Colin saying, no, this game will not be about that. I disagree. You know, using Fight or Flights in kind of this unique way. At 4 points.
The triple Rasa in hand for Colin. I think he's still holding off, which is, you know, what I've been saying. You can't over deploy, but I think I saw 3 Rasas sitting there ready to go for Colin as soon as this board gets wiped.
There was Bushwhack in Colin's list, correct?
Yeah,
yep.
Bushwhack is there. Bushwhack triple Rasa to end from 6 is going to be the main out to deal with Ezreal. You cannot allow Ezreal to just have a clear and then a redeploy and then a re-clear. You have to end the game when you go with that redeploy. So Alan's not going to want to let Colin get to 6 because he's also aware of this. He knows that the Bushwhack play has to come through.
I love the kind of look on Alan's face, like, you know, I just want to get my stuff, you know, like you're just doing such a good job of keeping me off what I want to do. So here comes the Vex. Going into combat is not combat. It is just a non-combat showdown. So the Vex is not active right now. Zon Wards conquered. Alan goes to 2. Discard Wages of Pain. Draw. Here's Raza.
Pays 3 for it.
And just a pass. Now, of course, Vex can be in combat on defense too.
Correct.
So if Colin wants to move into this Vex, that does open the window for Vex being in. That cost reduction to really stack up alongside the Ezreal.
And this is where we hit the inflection point of the match. Colin wants to go to 6 because you called out the bushwhack in this deck. He wants to go to 6 so that when this board is gone, he can bushwhack Rasa, end the game, right?
Oh. Okay. A little live look in here at Prismaticism and
yeah, this is a future, a little bit of the future, It's sneaking out, creeping in, as we are back to the start of game 1.
We had the time warp in last match, but you know the philosophical time warp is pretty cool too. So we'll get things reset up here and
be careful on the live scrub here.
Okay.
Don't want to do too much, as we do have a fizz.
Ooh. Okay.
Well, this is quite a bit of a fast forward, as Colin did go.
Let's take 1 second here and try and get this order. Las Vegas. I'm Jim Davis. That's Casanova, and it looks like we've got things repaired. We're back in, and Colin's at 4, Alan's at 2. So again, here's called shot. Vex is on the battlefield on Zon Warrens. Get right back into it. Like you're saying, Colin really wants to go to 6 this turn if possible. So back Colin's way, getting back into the game. Again, both players have so many cards to work with.
To further set the stakes here, Alan has not lost a set in a regional qualifier in Spiritforged.
Just went undefeated in Bologna.
Yeah.
Didn't drop a match.
Yeah. He ID'd 1 round at the end.
Sure.
But like, that is what it is.
That's not a loss, yeah. Wow. that is something. So what was that? I mean, how many rounds is that plus top 8?
I mean, it's 13 rounds and then top 8. 16 rounds?
So 16 rounds.
25 rounds.
That is unbelievable. That is true dominance. So we see Ezreal here. Colin working through. Colin looking to topple Alan and try and say, you know what? That win streak is over. My win streak is going to start now at 9-0, of course. So
you want to be the person to do it.
Oh, yeah.
You want to be the one who said, I was the one who got Alan, who finally beat Alan.
And for Alan, obviously being on a heater like that feels amazing. But there is an inherent amount of pressure of like, people are coming for you.
Yeah.
When's it going to end? You're going to lose eventually. You know, is it going to be now?
And I will say, Alan has the most insane mental of any competitor I have ever met. Nothing gets to him. But when I talked to him before this event, even in an interview, we even showed that interview that we were talking to Alan. He did say, you know what, even with my mental, I am still feeling a little bit of pressure after top 8 Houston, win Bologna. Everyone kind of just expects him to win.
All right, so we got a combat here. Draven's coming in. Alongside the Ram, going to pay the 1 Fury. So Draven's now up to 6. So you have 6 on Draven, 5 on Ram, and now this is the key part of the game. So now, Alan's been trying to get this Vex into a combat for multiple turns. Colin's been saying, no, 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 will not allow it to happen, but now it is finally in. This is the turn. Soup by to start, so -1 to the Ram. And now again, Vex will reduce friendly spells by energy and power to a minimum of 1 energy, but a lot of things can happen here. And you can see Colin kind of sitting back like, all right, I've been trying to avoid this, but we have to get that 6 point. Colin on 5 with Fizz taking the Void Gate.
I had very good optimization from Colin playing around Bellows Breath on this turn. Look at how he split his units. 2 at base, 2 at the battlefield, 1 over on the Void Gate. It means that the only way it can really punish you is 2 of these locations and you still keep the Fizz.
All right, so now we see Frigid Breath.
Yep, Frigid Touch, sorry. -4 with the repeat.
Bellows Breath, Frigid Touch, just all things you don't want to be involved with if you can try to avoid it. So now we're -2 on the Draven, so it's ++2, -4 down to -2 total overall. So we got 2 on Draven and 5 on Ram.
4 on Ram.
4 on Ram, right.
But yes.
I was just doing the math in my head, and I was like, that doesn't add up. And here is Bellows Breath. So, going to see repeat. And I imagine that'll be 2 to Draven, as well as 2 to the Battering Ram, only at the same location. Well, I guess the repeat can go to different locations.
It can, yeah.
Correct, so, and we're going to see a Spinning Axe.
2 to Draven makes sense.
Yes.
Right, you want to kill off the Draven, so it's going to be double tap on the Zon Warrens for this Bellows Breath. Good timing for Colin with the response on the Spinning Axe here. There's no reaction speed damage Alan can do to deny this attach.
Yep, so the Axe is on. And now Draven is back to 5. 5 on Draven, 4 on Ram. Vex, of course, 5. Ain't done yet, though, of course. Arcane Shift time. So 3 damage, and then a Banish and Replay.
Yep.
Banishing Ezreal. dealing 3 to the Draven.
Yeah, and that will kill off Draven here with 2 damage marked from the Bellows Breath. The +3 from the Spinning Axe means that this will hit, as it is going to be Ezreal just drawing 2, as he is the one kind of getting flickered here by the Arcane Shift.
So, that noting that the axe falling off on your turn is not nearly as bad. You're able to re-equip it and not lose it. But this combat has gone kind of sour. Now we have a 4-power Ram into the 5-power Vex. But of course, Colin not done yet. These players have been building up to this turn for almost the entire game. Here's a Fighter Flight.
Fighter Flood on the Vex, that's going to cost 3 and the 1 power, but Colin had ramped runes the entire game before ever taking a fight with Vex, so he has the resources to deal with it. Looks like it may be a hard bargain that can be played with repeat here with the Vex and the Ezreal on board.
Wow. All right, so point goes to Alan. When the dust is settled, Vex is still there. Colin has not won the combat, so now stuck at 5, really wants to get to 6, but coming right back in for round number 2. Ezreal picks up the axe and Bellows Breath number 2.
Free.
So why is this free?
So the reason this is free, Bellows Breath costs 1 and a power, and its repeat cost is 1 as a power. The way repeat works is it's going to create a total cost, 2 energy, 2 power. Then you have 2 different reduction effects in play. Vex is going to reduce by 1 energy, 1 power to a minimum of 1, and Ezreal is going to reduce any repeat cost by 1 energy. You decide which order reductions happen in Riftbound. So because the total cost is 2 energy, 2 power, you apply Vex's cost down to 1 energy and 1 power, and then Ezreal is able to either reduce the energy or the power from there, so you can reduce the Bellows Breath down to 0 energy, 1 power if you have Vex and Ezreal on board.
Okay, so that makes a trade. So again, Alan trying to keep Colin off this 6 point, but the last card available is a Bushwhack, and of course, tapped out? No, not exactly. 1 power for Raza, 10 or more cards in the trash, and there is point number 6. So, crazy turn. Colin has accomplished the task at pretty serious cost. That was a lot of resources lost, but up to 6 with the Raza. Now, did burn the Bushwhack. There are 2 Bushwhacks, right?
Yeah, I think this was one of the versions, one of the players that was playing 2 Bushwhacks, but maybe not if we're seeing the redeploy of the full Rosas, especially because we've seen some Fizzes played already. This might be 1 Bushwhack, 2 Fizz, which often means you won't play any Bushwhack if you play the Fizz, right? Because you're going to be able to recur them. And I believe that's Colin's version. We've seen some of the 2 Bushwhacks, but generally those are the ones who are not on Fizz. So I think we're on 1 Bushwhack, 2 Fizz in this spot.
All right, so Colin's all in. Down to 1 rune, just shove all the chips in the middle and saying, all right, here are my Razas, here's my stuff, you do your thing. So Alan's going to play a Fizz, going to flashback a called shot. Didn't quite get a good look at those cards there. But, I mean, even though Colin's at 6 and has accomplished the task, Alan has a lot of resources available here to try and defend.
And look at Colin's rune situation.
Is there a situation? I only see one.
So because, he had already used the seals on the turn, and he needs to develop these Rosas to try and push those last 2 points on the next turn. So he's gone down to a single rune. Now he does have the seals and the gold, so he can pay power costs that generally would be very scary with Vex on board, forcing some power costs to be paid. Those can get covered. However, 3 energy is not a lot. You're not going to get a lot done with that.
So Alan here just called shot, got to go through and try and find the right answers.
And he needs it because he was on 1 card basically going into this turn. So it's the Fizz, find the called shot, try and get another one, keep finding draw. He needs to rebuild this hand so that he can actually defend against 24 might, because he gets to eat the Fizz for free, so 24 will be left over. If he can eat the Rasa and the Fizz, then you've just got this total of, what is that, 18? 18's really beatable for Ezreal. It's like, honestly, it's pretty easily beatable, I'll have to say. But it comes down to still having the right cards. And he had to spend so much on that first turn. So we'll see if he can actually find it. Fizz is going to be another play here. So that's very helpful for Alan to keep finding more answers. And Stupefy being a nice one, not going to spend power and allow him to continue with these free clears.
So the Vex was in combat. I didn't use the Vex ability, though, once the combat was done. But a little Raza trade here. Stupefy making that one look quite nice. Conquer the Warrens, discard and draw. Alan up to 4. 4 runes left. Having Vex at the Void Gate does mean that if Colin wants to engage and try and take that 7th and 8th point, the Vex will be active. So a lot of setup here for Alan.
Very important card in Alanzq's hand is going to be the Arcane Shift. He has Fizz on board. That Arcane Shift is not only 3 damage, not only can it move the Fizz to one of the other battlefields, but it also represents any spell from the bin, and the repeat costs can be very cheap when it comes to Vex and Ezreal existing either in combat and just on the board. So Frigid Touch online, that Rebuke online, there's a lot of options that can be played for Alan, and that is one of the biggest defensive tools in the arsenal for Ezreal.
All right, so we saw Colin last turn really shoving everything in play, and now Alan kind of saying, all right, well, if you're shoving, I have to shove too to defend. So we see multiple units at each battlefield, a hidden card at each battlefield, and now we're going back Colin's way. And like you said, Colin is light on resources, so only 3 energy. A lot of power available, but a lot of might on the board as well. So trying to get a peek at the hand here. Looks like a lot of units.
Yeah, it does, and that happens with Miracle, right? It is. You have to put a lot of these units in your deck because that's just how it functions. You just draw into them and you dump them on the board.
All right, so Piercing Light repeated, targeting Vex and Fizz. This would be pretty huge if this goes through.
Yeah, this is a massive punish for being on the Void Gate.
Wow.
As Vex is going to just go down, and I think Alan noticing in that moment, like, wow, that is unfortunate. That is something that maybe he needed to play around.
Yeah, and now Ezreal can possibly go in on his lonesome, take the Void Gate, and then now the point of contention comes the 8th point on Zon Warrens. All right.
No Vex for the reduction, just sending 9 in to force Alan to flinch.
So Roz is in. There's a Wages of Pain. That's totally fine. Get the gold. Looking at a trade currently, but we got the shift. So now it's time to shift.
Yep.
So we see 3 onto Raza.
Yep, Fizz wages.
Yep. So Fizz replayed at the Zon Warrens, and then we'll replay the Wages of Pain. That's 3.
3
plus 3
6
plus 3.
9.
There
Damn,
you go.
that's fine.
All right. So Raza's gone. Axe falls to the ground, and a little reinforced there on the Warrens too. So a lot more work for Colin to do. Colin says, I'm up to the task. I'm going right back in with another 9.
Yeah, I mean, now 9 is not enough to completely clear. Alan going to allow the trade to happen. Axe gets to come through, though.
Yep.
Get to cascade this spinning axe using the seal, so not having to burn all the runes. Fizz gets taken out. Conquer for Colin.
Okay, so now 6 power Ezreal on the Warrens. Colin at 7. Little discard action. Alan was a little low on resources. Is a hold possible here?
It is, yeah. It's absolutely possible. We know it's not actually possible because he does have a Rebuke in hand. So it's never actually happening, but I would say that this kind of situation, because his cards ended up being a little bit low, a hold would be possible to happen. Singularity, though, is another option that he does have. I did see a Fizz in the hand of Colin, though. So Fizz plus the Bushwhack is going to be on the table once he has enough runes to actually do that.
Yeah, I mean, there were plenty of units in hand for Colin also, but all right, just we're kind of back to square one here. It looks like it's turn 2, but just going to play 2 units and say go on an empty board. So here's a Fan, here's a Nox Sopal,
yep,
and here's a Mind Splitter. Ooh.
Fizz gone.
Yeah, so
it's quick.
Rough hand for Colin. These Traveling Merchants are, at this stage in the game, not very exciting. So very unit heavy, very spell light. Mind Splitter down. That being said, Colin's at 7, and there are 2 units threatening potentially. Now Colin's down to about 6 cards in deck. So step 1 is the Fan. The face down card, just as a note, is the other battlefields, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep, so not a hidden card in a different sleeve, just making sure we're clear. So Fan comes into the Warrens. And we're going to see.
Just rebuke the Fan.
Rebuke the Fan. So Fan goes back to hand. A bit of a desperation play to rebuke a 2-drop here with the Hopeful available as well. Now, what's the next step for Colin? At this point, so deep in the deck, you know, Colin can kind of figure out what these last 6 cards are and what the odds are for, you know, for drawing of the next turn or 2. And again, fanning him out, kind of visualizing, okay, I know what these 6 cards are. I'm, you know, 1 and 6 to draw X or Y card next turn. Here comes the Hopeful. That's a draw off the Conquer, and then wow, scrappy draw off the Warren. So that's a lot of new cards.
3 cards left. Did he have shovel main or was it side? A lot of the players are shovel side. And I think we might be in that same boat for Colin if we don't see it played almost immediately here, which means that burnout is actually real as far as giving Alan a point, but he's not in position to win from burnout, and really it would just be Colin gets like a refreshed deck, but he wouldn't have a bin to work with anymore. Though there's not really much to do with the bin at this stage of the game with all the Rosses in it, everything in it.
All right, well, we see almost everything go to the Warrens. Hopeful, Fan, and Merchant. The other Hopeful stays home.
Yeah. Hidden card as well. Alan's going to scoop it up, it looks like. Doesn't have the answer in his hand, so that's going to be game 1 going over to Colin. What a masterclass between these two players on this matchup. Colin evading the Vex for a very long time, and Alan finding the patience, finding spots to gain some purchase back in the matchup, cleared both cycles from Colin, but just couldn't deal with the chaff remaining at the very end. Too many points that Colin gained by being able to cascade that equipment, doing everything perfectly. Really well done from Colin to take down the champ, Alan, in game 1.
Yeah, truly awesome game. Just a masterclass for both players. So we go to game 2 here, and the clock is, you know, a bit of a factor with 30 minutes left for 2 more games. We see a turn 2 Draven and Ezreal on turn 1. Sigil of a Storm and Obelisk of Power. Sorry, turn 1 Draven, apologize. Obelisk of Power and Sigil of a Storm on the battlefield. So, turn 1 Ezreal, turn 1 Draven, both signature units coming in. Here's a call shot. And Alan has some work to do here. And Alan, of course, needs to win 2 games to win this match. So the clock is a factor for Alan.
Yep.
And that's a student.
Speeding through, shortcutting the double student play, 4 runes.
Yep, okay.
We saw another called shot picked up. Alan just waiting till next turn when he's got his seal available again, so he can cast that for free. The student's going to be a lot faster for this game. He can try and get underneath Colin with this kind of start as long as he still has good interaction in hand. These students become absolute menaces. I think the record we've seen is one at, I believe it was 12 or 14 when we were in testing, and I think he even got one up to 10 or 11 during Bologna. So these things can become monsters in the hands of Ezreal.
All right, so back Colin's way. Called shot to start. Colin in the driver's seat, up a game. And this is one of our undefeated matches. At the conclusion of this round, we will have either 1 or 2 undefeated players, barring draws. And Draven's in. Here's a ram. But nothing else, just a single ram. So back Alan's way. Ezreal and Raven Bloom currently has the unit advantage. That's a called shot again, you know?
Yep. And we'll keep account of the Raven Blooms here. That's going to be 1 on this, as that is going to be relevant, pushing in for the potential combat that will follow. Flurry of spells.
Okay, so both the students coming in, they are both 3s.
Yeah.
And now, of course, Draven is just what Draven triggers. Does Colin want to spend a Fury to make Draven into his 6 or leave it as a 4? Again, tough with these students not knowing how big they're going to be.
Yeah, the thing with Alan is when he sends an attack like this, I think there's no correct answer for Colin. Because if he takes it, then Alan is going to have a punish in hand. And we actually see this with Stack Deck can either find an answer, or we also saw a Frigid Touch, which can completely blow out spending the rune. But if he doesn't spend the rune, Alan also has the option to blow out in a much easier way, where he just has to push above 4.
All right, so we're going to see Stack Deck put an action speed, focus back to Colin, fight or flight, targeting the Draven. So before Spy is even played, both players playing fast here, but focus does pass back and forth. So Draven goes back, a little reveal there on Stupefy. And now that's the point for Alan. And on the board, Obelisk of Power. And those Raven Blooms can be pretty hard to break.
Yeah, this is where Alan starts to pass with a large amount of runes open and a lot of games. So I'm curious what more he's willing to play on this turn.
You've already seen it. I'll just cash it in.
Yeah, does go for the Stupefy. Still 4 runes remaining after this.
Ooh. All right, so Bellows breath time.
Yeah, it means he has a clear. So he's Bellows for the draw. And now it's going to be Frigid Touch with Repeat.
Oh.
And that's just going to get rid of everything. So Alan going to tempo this out, recognizing, you know, you showed me a little weakness. You played out 1 of these battering rams and not much more. Seems like not a lot of deck velocity so far. Have the students out. And he's looking to tempo out this game.
All right, so great sequence from Alan. Cleaning up the board, double student in play. Ezra's hanging out too. And now it's back to Colin. Try and rebuild. Called shot's a great place to start.
Yeah, it's the best way to start, right? I mean, the only better would be like Ezreal first, and then the called shot, but just doesn't have one. Called shot going to be plenty, though, to start finding some units and look for a rebuild. Alan has to be very wary of the potential of a bushwhack here. Bushwhack is actually a complete blowout of the current position on the board.
Right.
With double student there, bushwhack into a battering ram, pushing over, may actually win the game for Colin. So there is something to dig towards with the called shot, with the stack. If you can find bushwhack plus 1 ram, you're there. But now it's a little too late. It would have to be bushwhack plus Rasa, but I don't think we have 10 in the bin yet.
It's close, but I think you're right. Wow. Okay, yeah. So Alan went shields down, and Colin could not find the perfect combination of cards. So going back Alan's way, we got a hold for the students. Alan up 2-1. Interesting to see the different pacing of game 1 and game 2. Game 1 was played so slowly, so patiently. This game more aggressive.
Yeah, and we already see a seal as the first play for Alan. Seal pay for seal. He did end up keeping Vex's in. I think she ended up being pretty impressive in that last game overall. I think Alan recognizing, okay, there's enough spells for Colin that maybe this is still worthwhile, and the reductions do feel pretty important. You need some of your own might value on top of that. So Alan going to hold on to the Vexes. I'm not sure exactly how many copies that he'll still be on. He may be on 3, it may be less. Yeah, Alan likes to tune his deck each game kind of based on what he sees on the other side. It's how he sideboards. Whenever I ask him about sideboard plans when we're talking about the game, he's like, I see what I played against, and then I move him in. So it's not set plans on how he likes to swap things in and out.
Yeah, and even though Vex game 1, it didn't actually spend a lot of time doing things. The game revolved around it trying to not do things.
Correct.
So going back Colin's way, Hopeful and Ezreal. Stack deck is the start. And a lot of might deployed from Alan here. Just play that pickpocket. Did they get a seal? I got a seal.
Yeah, sure. He did.
Okay, missed that one. So pickpocket, double student, and Fizz and Ezreal. Called shot again. It feels like these decks have 8 called shots each.
It really does, and it's the Fizz. I mean, it is Fizz that is causing this to be the case, right? You're constantly playing them out. And the seal getting destroyed is going to hurt on the Miracle side of things, right? Like, we saw where those runes ended up in that last game, and that was after Colin spent the whole game methodically building up essentially 11 runes, and then goodbye. They all went away in a single turn, right? Yep. And now, this time, not having that time to build up those runes, while Alan is building up actually more might than the last game. It's deceptive, right? Because there were 2 Vexes last time. That has to be more might, right? Raven Bloom, when we actually get to the nitty-gritty of it in the big turns, they're bigger than 5 every time, pretty much.
All right, so not a bad bad flow here. We got Noxious and Battering Ram and Nocturne all to back up for Colin. Scores up to 2 with the Nox Soulful, but now we're going back Alan's way. It is 2-2, but Alan definitely has the initiative. And starting things off with a stack deck. Oh, it's seal for seal? So
seal for seal.
Seal popped in there also.
Yeah, usually a lot of players, when they shortcut it, they actually just play the new seal exhausted. Sure. Because it's the same thing, right?
Yep. So, Stupefy and Students. We have, I believe that's 2 spells played so far for, this, for the Student.
4 and 3.
So, Stupefy and Students. Potent set 1 combination, still great here in set number 2. So, Alan goes up to 2. A lot of might to worry about in the back row for Colin. Pickpocket will take the Sigil, and Sigil will require a rune to be recycled, so goodbye rune. Another tax on Colin's runes, too, or if Colin wants to go for that Sigil, you know, with the Pickpocket taking out the seal. Already a little light on runes anyway.
Yeah, it's pain. It is really painful to have to deal with. And Alan, you know, he tapped out earlier, and then when he tapped out again, he brought everything home. At this point, anytime he's staying on field, you'll see him keep full runes, and he'll fight. And then he'll cycle back where it's like, okay, opponent can't push in.
Oh.
So now I score hold, I run home.
Hold on.
This is very big.
The
walks into a Bryn here.
Thunderstorm comes down, and the whole plan of always runes up is not a good one with Thunderstorm. And now, of course, there can be some reactions.
Yep. Going to start with Smoke.
So Smoke Screen will target. We'll see what the target is. And it's going to be the Battering Rams. Battering Ram down to -4. These Raven Blooms are up 1 each. And that is the only spell. So, shields down for Alan. Alan's got to sit and be a spectator here as Nocturne comes in. Eats the Pickpocket. A point is scored, a rune's recycled, and now we see Nox, Soulful, and Ezreal come into these Students. That is 7-6.
Yeah.
And nothing to worry about here. Usually it feels a little weird to kind of go into such a slim margin of error in a combat, but with Thundersong there, that feels great. So, Colin up to 4. We have 4-4 now. And killing those students is a very difficult thing to do. And now that they're gone, that's a huge win for Colin.
Yeah, this is massive. There is no better timing for a Brynn, and Alan only having one response. Oftentimes, Ezreal is able to fire off, you know, smoke, frigid touch with repeat, and then, you know, you actually can't even break the student still after all of that happens. And all you got was you traded out 2 of those spells that he actually gets to grab one back by activating Ezreal as well. So often Brynn here doesn't actually get things done, and Colin finding a rare occasion where it's actually a very big punish against Ezreal. You would expect this card to be like an obvious punish into Ezreal all the time, but there are so many times where it does nearly nothing.
Alan's still working it through. Here's Thousand Tail Watcher.
Bellows Breath is in the hand as well to follow along with this.
So we get to see this little minor combo here of, it's not that minor. Thousand Tail Watcher and Bellows Breath.
Yeah.
Well, we'll start up first. So Watcher shrinks all of Colin's units down, -3.
Yeah, so this will be easy. Ezreal into Sigil, Fizz into Obelisk, Bellows Breath with repeat on the back line, wipes out everything except for Rasa. And the look is, can you find something to actually clear the Rasa? Looks like this time, no, because off the draw, he's just going to find nothing else. No more energy. So the Rasa has to get left. It's not a perfect clear, but it is Alan 2-6, and Colin with nothing but a Rasa on the board.
Yeah, still pretty good. So back Colin's way. Rasa Besunderer holding the fort. And now, what's the next step? Coming right in. So Rasa for Fizz. Colin goes to 5. Draw off Draven. And what is the follow?
Alan has the best follow-up for the next turn. Arcane Shift for the Thousand-Tailed Watcher, re-accelerate it. So if Colin cannot remove the Ezreal and it gets to hold, that's always winning.
Oh,
but Bushwhack is perfect.
Okay.
This is the way that Colin can at least set up the board where he doesn't just lose to Alan on the next turn, and that can buy space. That can buy a way back in. That can buy a win.
And here we go.
It's gonna be hopeful.
Nox Sopal.
But that's enough.
Takes the Ezreal. Now, painful. A lot of runes being used here, but that is a big time play for Colin going up to 6. And then with Alan only on 6, there isn't really a way for Alan to push that 8th point. The only accelerate unit in the deck is the 1000 Tail Watcher, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. Back Alan's way. This has been a slugfest. Both players playing phenomenally. Alan's got a handful of cards. Here comes Thousand Tail.
This is how you can conquer both, though. Push the Thousand Tail in, score to 7, Arcane Shift to base, shoot here, accelerate, score to 8, and Alan has the win.
All right, so you can play your accelerate cost when you play it off the shift. Come back in, play the accelerate, Thousand Tails in. Alan takes game number 2 in what has been one of the most exciting matches of the entire weekend. Game 3, 18 minutes left. I cannot wait. I'm very, very happy they have a good amount of time. If we were going to game 3 with like 6 minutes left, I would be very disappointed to not see a natural conclusion, but these players are going to gear up and get ready to go for one of the matches of the weekend so far.
Look, Jim, you're absolutely right. There's only one accelerate unit in the deck. When you get to replay it,
right.
It's actually 2 of them.
Yeah. So really, really cool synergy there. Being able to accelerate off of the cast from the shift. Whew, boy, game 3. Alan, Colin, 2 of our remaining undefeated players at the end of this round. We will have 2 or 1 undefeated players. This could be a match for King of the Hill. Oh boy, buckle up, folks.
Yeah, and Alan going to be on the starting Obelisk of Power. I think that may have been a downwell that he shipped to the bottom. It's something you like into the Miracle deck, but only later on. You don't want to start the game with it. It can clog up your hand quite a bit, especially if you don't have the rest of what you're looking for. On the Obelisk game, the Vexes definitely come back in. Turn 2 play that you can make. We'll often see the skip on turn 1 from Ezreal if there isn't a good discard target, but usually Alan likes to get the Ezreal in and online right away.
Speaking of online right away, turn 1 Ezreal from Colin. Discarding a Nox, so full draw 2. All right. Targon's Peak for Colin. Obelisk of Power for Alan. Alan right to 4 and getting to work.
Yep, going second, so it can still be Ezreal on turn 1, Vex on turn 2 if he would like, but he does have a student, even better.
All right, so student pass, 2 runes up. Going Colin's way.
Needs to wait for a better target for his Ezreal that he wants to discard. Student is still going to be able to actually contend with the board, play for Targon's Peak. Resetting those runes with a Student is incredibly potent. You already saw how potent Student was just in general in this deck, but now when you get to actually spend your spells, develop, and then get 2 runes back that you can play with the Student, it creates a lot of crazy ranges, because with 2 runes back, you have Stack Deck Stupefy, you have Stupefy, you have Frigid Touch, you have Called Shot Stack Deck Stupefy. I don't need to go on. There is
a lot of permutations.
A lot of ways that you can increase this might to kind of ridiculous numbers, like numbers that are nearly impossible to correctly play around every time. You sort of have to put Alan on a hand and hope that you can play into it.
All right, so we do see the Draven played to Targon's Peak, trying to find the might to defend against the Raven Bloom Student, trying to stop that Student move in Targon's untap. 2 runes ready for Colin, and you know what? Alan's is fine. Let's go the other place. So go to the Alanzq power. There's a point, and there's a Vex. So Vex is in, Alan's at 1, Colin's going to 2 on the hold. Now Draven and Ezreal both not stuck at Targon's Peak, but unable to really do too much else besides go home at the moment. But could this be the big pop-off turn for Colin?
Yeah, I mean, that's the look. Turn 3 always can be. And it started with Seal Ezreal. I mean, this is exactly what Colin wants. I think this game, from the outset, is very good for the Miracle side. You start with Ezreal on turn 1 because of the Obelisk, with a Seal, then you get Draven. Now you get to go to your normal turn 3. I mean, we see a Cold Shot and a Stack Deck already, getting played, is getting to dig through this deck. There's really nothing more you can ask for as a Miracle player at this stage.
All right, Seal number 2. Here is Ezreal number 2. And discard a Hopeful again. Right, yeah, I was going to say power cost play on Ezreal. There we go. And so many Hopefuls.
Brings everything home.
Hopefuls in, back out at 2, say go. So Alan goes up to 2. Players are at parity at 2. Vex hanging out in base. Students coming home. And now what's the next step for Alan? We've seen patient Vex playing from game 1. Game 2 is play a little faster. And here's just an Ezreal. So Ezreal discarding Vex number 2, draw 2.
If he finds a Bellows, there's a pretty big clear on the back line with a repeat Frigid Touch. I don't think he has it. I think the Bellows is missing.
Okay, so Vex goes in. This will trigger Targon's, put Alan to 3. And then, of course, now put Colin in a spot where if Colin wants to contend with the Targons, Vex gets into that combat, and the cost reduction begins to happen.
With all these runes.
Right, with all these runes and an Ezreal. I don't even want to try and calculate how many cards Alan could play, potentially.
All of them.
There's all of them.
Yeah, I would say all of them is a reasonable look at this point.
Stack Deck to start up for Colin. Really cool. The texture of all 3 of these games has been pretty different in a really, really cool way. So,
Called Shot.
Stack Deck, Called Shot. Train, choo-choos on. More cards. Can Colin find the right combination to put himself up to 10-0 here in Las Vegas at the regional qualifier? Ooh. Hello.
Bryn here.
Thundersong. Okay, so
once again finds a spot where the Bryn gets to be very good, looking for it with the Called Shot, with the Stack Deck.
Yeah,
and her ugly head, Colin finding some very good opportunities for these Bryns.
Yeah, great counterplay to Vex, of course, as well. So now Vex is, you can reduce all the cost of all the cards you want. You can't play them, so who cares? So, Thundersong in, and now Alan needs to decide what reactions will happen in response to this. There's Stupefy, and it looks like that might have been it. Wow. Thundersong, big deal. So, here comes Hopeful, here comes Ezreal. Vex is gone. Huge exchange. Draw off the Draven. Goodbye, Nox Hopeful. Ezreal stays in. Targons will also untap 2 runes.
Yep, Called Shot again.
So fire up a shot, more cards.
Wants to maybe find a good answer at 2 runes to this push in from the Ravenbloom Student, because Colin's going to want to go to 4 here. If he can prevent Alan from clearing stuff for free, that's pretty big for him. So he's going to send the Draven.
All right, so Draven goes over to Obelisk of Power.
And a Ram.
The next step is a Ram. All right, so end step, untap 2 for Targon's Peak. Say go. Big turn for Alan. that Alan needs to kind of fire back here. Great turn for Colin. These Thunder Songs have been fantastic, perfectly timed. Now it's Alan's turn to figure out the puzzle and figure out what to do at 3 points. Handful of cards, so plenty of options.
Down on the point tempo. No Bella's Breath that we've seen so far, which is the key piece in this matchup. You have so many different ways to enable it to remove much of the board, but you do need to find that part of the combo. Ezreal doesn't have a lot of trouble doing so, right? You dig through your deck very quickly. You know, we saw the Victor, it draws a decent amount of cards, but not that many, and so it struggled to find the full combo pieces. Ezreal almost always has it, and we are going to see the Frigid Dutch with Repeat get a draw from Ezreal. He's digging.
So shrink those down. Combat looking a little nicer here, so we see Ezreal come into Ezreal, and the mirror match is won by the one that is not very, very cold. Seal Discord. Ravenbloom student is, ooh boy, okay.
He's digging further.
So here's a shift. Shift can do 3 damage to the Draven, and we'll see the banish will be Ezreal almost assuredly.
Yep, and he's pointing the damage. The Draven currently at the -2. If Colin has a spinning axe, it has to be deployed now. Looks like that is what is being thought of, unless, I mean, it could just be hard bargain to force Alan to drop his last 2 runes. That would still be strong. You lose the Draven, but you prevent further action from Alan. But it is the axe.
All right, so just an axe. So now Draven's up to 5. 5 with 3 damage marked. Our players here, I mean, they know what they're doing. Super clean. And discard the bargain. So had the option there. And now we see Ravenbloom is currently +2. So Ravenbloom at 4. The Draven is at 5 with 3 damage. And going to move in. Is this a trade or is this a more spells? More
I think he's just trading, yeah. It looks like trade. He drew a new student. I think it's trade, deploy new student, and just pass.
Cool, so getting the axe also, which is a big deal. So.
Yep.
It's a new student, Targon's to conquer, ready the runes, Sega. Going back Colin's way. Whew.
You know, weathered the storm of Brynn already, not what he wanted to see on the side of Alan, right? The Brynn was very good in this spot once again, right? Trying to rely on more of these action speed cards, not finding the stack of reactions that work. But he did have the Frigid Touch. I think it was a conscious decision for Alan that, hey, I actually can't contest this in a way that is very meaningful, and I need these cards maybe for the next turn to try and look for better clears. So he lets the Vex go with just a trade.
Now, however, Colin has a chance to go to 6.
Yeah.
And that is a big deal, as we saw in the previous game. Trying to put Alan in like a sort of a check almost. So Ram comes in. Stack deck, action speed. Take a look. 1 rune left over.
It's going to be the Fizz.
So take Fizz. And stack deck again. All right. So a setup turn. Alan's saying, you know what? Fine. Take your 6 points.
It's very good use for Targon's Peak to find the 2 stack decks.
Yeah.
Just dig. 2 energy that he wouldn't have had, 2 extra energy getting to be used.
Only downside here is those stack deck choices needed to be made before the rest of a turn was taken.
Right.
So the cards that Alan took, we'll see if they pan out or not, because obviously we're going to see a bunch of things happen here for Colin. So here's Fizz. Here's Called Shot. Keep those cards coming.
It was a flexible choice by Alan, right? It was the Fizz. Second option, I believe, was Fizz or Rasa. Oh no, I think it might have been that second Arcane Shift. So there's another shift. So Fizz Shift is going to be available.
Okay, so Thundersong comes in Targon's, and that is that all-important 6th point. Colin looking to be in a good spot, but wants to keep following up. Next step is another Ezreal.
Looks like he wants to find as much might as possible to put on the back row.
You gotta pay power there, yeah.
Likely to lose the battering ram and the Brynn here.
All right, so ready to say go. Colin on the edge of being 10-0. Going back Alan's way. Alan has not lost the match in, I don't know, basically forever. 25 matches was the count, right?
25.
Across Bologna and here in Vegas. Alan does not want the streak to end just yet. Has his eyes on another trophy. Here's Fizz. Here's Frigid Touch.
Judge with Repeat, just has to pay the 1 extra because he has Ezreal on board. 5 runes remain after the fact. That may be a bargain.
All right, so Colin with a bargain, not repeated. So says you got to pay 2 more for that if you want that to go through.
It's not what Alan really wants to see because he needs all these runes so that he can then play defense on the next turn. I think Colin may be marching toward being the first person to unseat Alan since the start of Spiritforged. But we are going to have a response to the hard bargain to draw from Ezreal. He's targeted 2 units with the Frigid Touch repeat. Wants to know his options going forward if he can let that just resolve.
Wow, so the bargain, interesting on both sides. Colin could have repeated for 4, and then Alan could have paid. Both players just doing the thing, 2 and 2. I love a bargain being paid just to tap some, to potentially tap some runes and then still resolving to counter the spell. So now Alan's back at it. That spell was not played for Ravenwood Student, correct? Being countered?
Correct, it was countered, so it will not count.
And now we see Arcane Shift. Shift the Fizz. 3 damage will go to either the Thundersong or the Ram. And then touch again. Here's a repeat. So the Thundersong took 3 off the Arcane Shift. The touch will shrink it down by 2, finish it off. Ram is now also at 3 might. So a costly turn, but working well so far. Here comes Student. Student is currently a 3. Ram's 4. Ram's currently a 2.
Frigid Touch, Arcane Shift.
Right. And then Ezreal comes in. We see a Fight or Flight.
That can't be stopped.
That's his back it up. So Alan at 4. A Student and only 1 rune. Huge because that denied the 2 runes of Targon's Peak, setting up Colin to win the game next turn.
Yeah, and I think Alan needed that. I think Colin is going to have a little too much might. It's going to be a hidden Wages of Pain here. From there, I mean, maybe Stupefy is the best case scenario, but 3, 6, 9 power might for Colin. One of them has to go Targon's Peak, right, in order to go to 7. So only 6 coming in. I mean, Wages plus a 1-cost spell is going to deny just on board victory for Colin. But there's still untap of all these runes.
Oh, it's coming in quick. Bushwhack time. Oh, boy.
That's probably just going to do it.
Triple Rasa
Triple, the scoop up from Alan.
Wow. Colin taking down Alan. The streak is over. And Colin moves 10-0. Actually unbelievable. That match was one of the best matches I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, I mean, this is perfection. This is beauty in motion of Riftbound. This is what the game can be. Colin is the one to finally defeat Alanzq after 25 sets of Riftbound in Spiritforged.